So, I have embarked on yet another attempt to fix myself. I'm sure anyone who's found themselves here listening to this can relate to that phrase. Being broken is probably a familiar feeling. I've never felt fixed. I've certainly found tools that I've found helpful. I've lost tools, or they have become useless for one reason or another in the process of trying to fix myself. More information, right? How do I find myself personally broken? Right now, I have, I guess, personally decided that I have CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from an assault in 2013. I do have a history of multiple traumatic brain injuries, including that one incident in 2013, which resulted in multiple traumatic brain injuries. So I do have brain damage in multiple ways that most likely will remain fairly undefined until I die. But suffice to say, on that level, I remain in the football player category of undefined brain damage. The long-term results of which will just continue to develop throughout my life, and I have to be aware of them. So that is something that I just need to be aware of as I work with psychologists and psychotherapists and so on. When I get worked up, I get off topic, so there will be many times when I just have to babble for a little bit and then take a few pauses to refocus. So what do I have? That was the post-traumatic stress and the multiple TBIs. Those are some acronyms I will use. My personal guesstimation, because I was not taken to the doctor until I was 20 for a TBI, is about 12 to 13 traumatic brain injuries, not totaling the multiple TBIs or the multiple instances of traumatic events suffered on that one assault in 2013. So 12 to 13 TBIs. Moving on, severe anxiety, severe depression. I was the victim of abuse from my mother. I think that she had has narcissistic personality disorder, and she abused me from that perspective as a child. I do plan to go into some detail there. I'm not sure how deep I will get into that for the purposes of this. So, moving on. She was also a raging alcoholic. When I say raging, I mean like bipolar. Not bipolar, no, that's not right. That's not fair to the bipolar people of the world. That paints them in a terribly negative light. My mother's alcoholism was the demon in her life that abused me the most. We'll put it that way. Her NPD was definitely what caused her to seek alcohol to medicate, and then that drove her NPD abuse to a whole new level. And so that created a hellish cocktail for me. And so I am a victim of that combination of abuse, which was mental and verbal and neglectful and shaming and painful. So we'll move on. What else do I have? I have previously been diagnosed with an eating disorder. From my own research, and I am currently talking to doctors about what to and how to pursue this. I need to look into actual diagnosis of dissociation issues. I definitely... Anyways, I have to deal with how to keep me in me. I have identified some mental things that I do, most likely as coping mechanisms, that are not healthy. And though they are understandable, they are not healthy. And so I probably have some more diagnosable disorders and need to work on healthily flushing those out as coping mechanisms and replacing them with healthy coping mechanisms. Right now, those help me deal with everyday life, because everyday life is hard. So moving on. Those are the diagnosis I have. Alright, so back to fixing myself. That's why I was talking about what I had. I had to remind myself. So I am here to fix myself, and I'm hoping that this new way, this video, might help. I've thought about doing something different, and this is something different. So, here we are. My hope is that Maybe I can help more people than just myself, and that will be helpful to me. I've heard someone call it people pleaser syndrome, but I don't think that's quite on the money here, because I want to do more than just prevent people from getting upset. I want to help people feel better. And I think if I can bring other people happiness, it might heal me a little more, because that's something growing from the ashes. I've used this analogy a few times. My hope grows from the ashes. I have been devastated many times. I have set out to fix things many times. My efforts have been bulldozed. My efforts have been bombed. My efforts have been burned. My efforts have been punched in the face, pinned to the ground, and beaten in the head. Yet somehow, like a creeping vine, a little voice inside me won't let me die. So, if I won't let me die, I guess I shouldn't let other people die either. If I have hope, maybe I should spread it around. I don't know, maybe that's too selfish. Or maybe I'm just that messed up. I think it was 1980 that Mount St. Helens erupted. I mean, it's erupted a few more times, but the biggest eruption was in 1980, and yeah, most of you probably know the story. It blew its top, pyroclastic flows came down. I think something like 82 people lost their lives. It was devastation. One day, the area was pristine, beautiful, idyllic. A week later, it was a wasteland. It might as well have been the moon. It was alien. Something like 8 or 9 months later, a survey crew was finally able to fly in on a helicopter. They thought it'd be safe enough to land and take measurements of, how thick the pyroclastic flows were. They were gonna go see how acidic Spirit Lake was, and see if they could find data to, just anything useful. But the trick is that, shit around there at the time, they couldn't have gotten in any sooner, was the point. This is their first trip in. They're flying by, they're just looking for a place to land. And, as the ground's going by, looking for a spot. And all of a sudden, dude's like, whoa! Over there, man, over there. Helicopter lands. And what does the dude see but this little purple bush? Purple imagine seeing purple on the moon. That's the astonishment in this guy's face. It's a weed. It's an herb. It's a usable weed native to the Northwest. That's where Mount St. Helens is, just in case you don't know. But this guy is just dumbfounded, this surveyor, geologist. Probably didn't even know what the plant's called, took a picture of it. But it's a weed. That's the point. But this guy is dumbfounded. He thinks this is one of the most beautiful things he has ever seen, because it is this beautiful, bright purple color in a barren alien wasteland. 9 months after a devastating volcanic eruption in a place he thought nothing could grow. My hope is a weed. And I feel like I have to share it. I feel like I have to help that weed grow in other people's wasteland, if I can. I feel like that's important somehow. Especially today. Times like today. Alright, kids, don't smoke. Certainly not until you're allowed to legally smoke. I have to refocus again. I'm on here to fix myself. I just told you why I feel like I need to record it and broadcast it to the world. I'm going to go ahead and start into a little bit of my story. I'm going to go ahead and warn you that when I am verbally telling a story, I'm not wonderful at going in a regular order of beginning, middle, and end. So I'll do my best. I'm also going to go ahead and tell you that I'm doing this in a purposefully raw form. I'm trying to stay in my more comfortable elements to keep myself focused and comfortable. Also, it's important to me that you see me and not a me that's made up for the camera. I'm telling this story as honestly as I can, so I want you to see my honest face. I'll start by giving you some details of how I grew up. My parents adopted me at birth. They got a divorce when I was 5, and my mother got primary custody. The divorce was really messy. I remember my stepmother revealed some details to me recently that she remembers my mother literally throwing me into the house after mom and dad got in an argument at the car at a drop-off. Because my mother apparently felt it was appropriate to take her anger out on me physically when she was angry at dad. So that explained some issues to me that I developed later on in life. So that divorce was really messy. Like I said, mom got primary custody. I saw dad twice a week. Growing up was really hard. I literally made it through childhood as a whole person by the grace of God. My stepmother took me to church. I got involved with youth group, and I dissociated from my home life when I was at home. And then I spent as little time at home as possible. Spent a lot of time at school, spent a lot of time at youth group, spent a lot of time at friends' houses. I may get into some more specific stories again, but I'm trying to keep this succinct because it will turn into an insanely long story if I don't. Both mom and dad worked insane work hours. I will give them that. They dedicated themselves to their work, but that's because mom was an incapable parent. She was incapable with connecting with anyone emotionally. She needed a lot of adoration for everything that she did, so I think that she got that at work, so she worked hard. She had really messed up senses of intimacy, so I'm pretty sure that any male colleague she had, if they gave her praise, she thought that they had an attractive interest in her, or maybe not, and she just thought that employment praise was somehow linked with I don't know what she fucking thought, but she certainly appreciated their praise more than mine. She went out to dinner with them all the time. She forgot me at babysitters, at soccer practices. There's a lot of hurt there. So, again, more stories later. When I was 16, I got a car. Mom and I got in a huge fight. I left home, and because I had a car, I could get far enough away from home because I had run away from home several times. I just couldn't get far enough away from home to fucking go anywhere, so I got far enough away from home with the car. I went to a friend's house. From then on, I only slept at mom's about 50% of the time. I either slept at dad's, or I slept at friends' houses, or whatever. Alright, so I'm going to try and pick this back up at when I got a car. I'm trying to keep you guys going with the general story of my life just for this first one, and then maybe dive into more specifics later on. When I got a car, it really changed things. I had previously tried to run away from home before, but I hadn't gotten very far because I'm 5'3" and pretty dang strong, but walking all that far with 2 bags, like a backpack and a bag full of clothes, was a little bit much. So when I got my car, I ended up going to a friend of mine named Stephanie's, and though like I said, we'll get into that story, there's a lot to it, and there's a lot about going to that specific place that was really important for me. But when I was able to go there, being able to physically get away from my mom and having a place that was not my father's, that I was able to sleep at and that did not make me go home the very next day, was insanely important. And that was a big turning point because it wasn't church, it wasn't my dad's, it wasn't a sleepover, it was an extended stay invite that did not require me to leave. And it was freeing. It was freedom from her, from hell. I couldn't get away from that hell that was my mother, and that voice inside of my head that kept telling me how bad I was, and the filter that, filtered everything that everyone said to mean that I was worthless and that I had done something wrong and worth punishing, which are still active in my head. That's one of the things that makes daily life so hard, is anything that anyone says goes in this ear And whatever's actually said out here goes in, and in here it says, you're shit. You made the wrong decision. You did the wrong thing. So, yeah, it's a complicated issue, and it just makes life suck. It really does. Anyways, I may not have been able to get away from that filter, but I wasn't in her house of horrors anymore. I was in a house where when I shut the door too hard, there wasn't a voice echoing down the hall saying, "God damn it, Jenny, keep it down!" I would accidentally slam the door too hard in that house and go, "Eh," but then nothing would come. No one would yell. I could stand up straight, shake it off, pick up my backpack that I had just dropped, and walk into the kitchen. You know, and once my stomach had settled down after slamming the door too hard, I could think about finding whatever it was I was looking for in the kitchen. That it was took a while to adjust to. I still flinch when I accidentally slam the door. I still hesitate to ring the doorbell at other people's houses because sometimes my mom would lock me out of the house, and for a long time she was afraid to give me a house key because she was afraid that I would lose it, and then somehow someone else would know exactly what house that house key belonged to, and that they would come and rob our house. So because she didn't trust me with the house key, she never gave me one, but then I couldn't get into the house. But then she couldn't hear me knock because she'd be so far away or passed out drunk, so then I'd ring the doorbell. And then when she'd get to the doorbell, she'd scream at me because the doorbell was loud and annoying. But in any case, so moving on. The point was I got a car, got out of my mom's house, away from my mother, and I finally relaxed a little bit. That got better in stages as I got further and further away from my mother and into adulthood. Now, something that happens to a lot of individuals, so I've been told, that are children of narcissistic parents, is that they're often so sheltered and they withdraw and they distance themselves from reality that they don't necessarily learn all the coping mechanisms. Now, I have not delved into psychiatry far enough to know how true or not true this is, and I really do not know what the overlap is when it comes to children of alcoholics, nor do I know what the overlap is in terms of narcissism and alcoholism. So I cannot make generalizations whatsoever about this issue. However, what I do know is coming out of my mother's household, I had been forced to be the adult since I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I was leaving my mother's house at 16, 17, 18. So when I was moving into adulthood, physically, by year, I had already been an adult for a long, long time. But emotionally, my inner child was stunted, and my adult was overdeveloped. And so I don't know where I am. I know that I'm an insanely empathetic person. I know that I moved through my years of adulthood as an incredibly capable person. I am a valued employee at any place that I work. I like to work. I like to be occupied. I don't like to stand around and be useless. I hate it. It bothers me. Right now I'm a mostly stay-at-home parent, and it's a little bit difficult for me. I am doing this because it does feel productive, but it breaks me a little inside to focus so much on myself. That's an ongoing issue. It does. It breaks my heart to focus on myself. it might be good for me, but it physically becomes painful at times. I worry that I might become the narcissist if I focus too much on myself. As I understand it, that is somewhat of a hardwired defense mechanism of the narcissist, of my mother. She may not have had any idea that she was installing that in me as a child, but that is what she did. It's like a self-destruct mechanism for any attempt that I make to distance myself from her, so that she can try and keep me. That's one of the reasons why I'm really debating whether or not I need to completely cut contact with her. So moving into adult life, I went into adult life with a lot of adult skills. I went into adult life with a really underdeveloped inner child. And I would never be able to figure out why, in the peaks of my accomplishments, of my, oh my God, I did this, I would feel I feel like such a failure. I would get there and I'd be like, why is there this sense inside of me that I'm on top of the world and I'm hollow? Like this statue is made of fool's gold. And I can only guess that's why. I'm trying to fill those answers in. I think I've blocked some of the association of exact feelings with those exact moments because they were so difficult, but I can remember just heaving with sobs at various moments when I should have been exulting with joy and being so confused. My friends have recently been reminding me of various points in life when I should have been really happy and I was suffering from medical issues that were unexplainable. I mean, there were legitimate feelings and physical pains and difficulties that I was having, but they were inexplicable of cause, you know, like it could just... So there are various symptoms that can be pointed, you know, like, hey, why did this happen? Well, now we can kind of take those red strings back. Point to point to point. So at one point I left Oregon. I really identified a lot of what was me. A lot of times I would say, you know, I can tell I'm like this person in this way, and this person in this way, and this person in this way, and I can like add all those things together and say that is me, but I can't really say this thing is me. And so when I left Oregon, I found a lot of those things that were me, that were Jenny, that made up Jennifer Haskin. And that was really healthy for me. But I found a lot of relationships that were not healthy, that saw Jennifer Haskin as a person that was full of something but didn't know where to put it. And they said, I'll take that, and I'll take that, and I'll just plug this hose in here and this hose in here, and I'll feed off you for a little while. I'll drink your milkshake, as I've heard. I think it's Richard Grannon put it. I've been watching a lot of his videos and give him some props there. Go check out his channel. He's got a lot of good things to say. So I found a lot of unhealthy relationships there, some setbacks. Definitely more forward progress than setbacks when I went on the road and got out of Oregon. But I came back eventually. Again, made a lot of progress there. Had some setbacks. The assault happened after that. Eventually I met Dave, which was a wonderful thing. He has been great. He has suffered some narcissistic abuse, so we are both struggling through some of that. His was not in childhood. He understands where his has happened. He is making some realizations as I am making realizations. We have a very supportive network of friends that is supporting us through these struggles, but I have to climb this ladder. Sorry, guys. So, we come to about November of 2017, and my would-be sister-in-law, I think it was maybe her 6th or 7th attempt, attempted to commit suicide, was found, but her attempt was about 75% successful, and then 100% successful. And they did not reach her in time. They could not pump her stomach. The amount of pills that she had taken had been processed by her liver, and her liver failed. And so they had to take her off of her life support because at that point she was not a candidate for liver transplant, and she passed away about 72 hours after they found her. So there went my one chance to really have a sister that would have talked to me and understood me. She had gone through things that I had gone through. Everything that I had gone through. Her father had been abusive to her. She'd suffered some of the losses I had suffered. She'd been through some of the trauma I had been through. I had been looking forward to gaining that sister. And she lost the fight that I have been fighting. And she lost it because she couldn't keep fighting. And because that fight that we fight every day is so damn hard. Because there are literally voices you can't stop. But they're not real, and you know they're not real. And they're not voices, they're your voice. I'm sorry I'm not talking loud enough. Okay. So, I lost Corey. Dave lost Corey. We all lost Corey. Losing Corey terrified me because I am fighting the fight that Corey lost. And Corey lost that fight because she couldn't keep fighting it. It is a daily battle for anyone that's been through hell. Hell does not leave. You do not escape. It's not a place. It's not like you leave the house and you walk out the door of hell and never go back. Every time, I'm trying to think of a specific trigger that is easily describable, but there are these things called emotional flashbacks for anybody that hasn't defined that yet or is watching this to be informed because they haven't experienced it. But there's something called an emotional flashback. You may have seen it portrayed in a video about typical PTSD as opposed to a complex traumatic stress disorder. A more typical PTSD flashback would be something like, a firecracker goes off and it takes you back to a combat zone. Well, an emotional flashback might be, here's one. Okay, so once when I was little, The first time I ever went roller skating was for somebody's birthday party. And I was roller skating like a champ. But I played soccer. So whenever I felt like I was going to fall down, and I was a goalkeeper. So whenever I lost my balance and I was going for a soccer ball, the reaction is to sit. Your center of gravity is quite secure to the ground. So if you're going for a ball and you're trying to contain it, you just sit on it. So roller skating like a champ, and I was going to fall down, so I sat on it. What happened? I got a roller skate right up my bunghole. And it was really uncomfortable, and it was really, really upsetting. And my mother got really upset with me because I was crying and devastated because my butthole hurt because I got a roller skate wheel up it. And I was like 7, so my butthole was small. Anyways, it was traumatic. And then my mom made it extra traumatic by getting upset with me because I was making a scene. I was crying. I was upset. I couldn't stop crying because it really hurt. And then I never roller skated again. I would rollerblade, but I wouldn't roller skate. Then my mother forced me to have a birthday party at a roller skating rink when I was in 3rd grade. Notice I'm getting really upset. So I really don't like roller skating. I had to get over it at one point because my work made me go with a bunch of kids to a roller skating rink. I had a little bit of a panic attack when I realized where we were going, and I had to make myself get through it. It was when I had some coping mechanisms. It worked out. Aside from the point, roller skating, even stories of roller skating get me a little worked up. This is something that might be called an emotional flashback. I have to find a specific strategy that will allow me to go roller skating without getting emotionally worked up. This is because my mother caused me to have a really negatively associated feeling with roller skates and roller skating rinks. It took me a little while to walk into this place called Oaks Park, which is where the incident happened, without getting upset. These are feelings that if I think really hard about, I can really mine into. These are things that I don't often think about, or I find my mind flitting around like a butterfly. And I have these internal, I can think about them and break them down, but it does take some mental focus. These are tricks that I've learned to do, and I learned to do them quite early. What I had to do was learn to focus and follow those butterfly flitters. And I think that that's probably the trick that a lot of people have to sit down and learn, but that's for another time. That's probably more of a meditation thing that I learn to do subconsciously. I think that I personally put up a lot of defenses based on some of the books I read as a child, without actually knowing that I did it. But again, let's move on. So I am really motivated right now to try and put at least a first segment of this together, because I have been really disturbed and frustrated in the last probably 4 or 5 days. So like I said, we were in November when Corey passed away, and I just terrified myself. And then we went through the holidays. It was a really rough time. Again, 2017 to 2018. We got through January, we moved into February of 2018, and that's about where we are today. About 2 weeks ago, I really realistically thought my mother was dead. She has been going through rehab, and that would be the first time in my conscious awareness that she has done this. She says she hasn't had a drink for 2 months. I can't guarantee that that's actually true. I haven't seen her for 3 months. The last time I did see her was when she wanted me to go to family night at said rehab, and then was late and we got refused, and that's when I said, no, I'm done. I'm not doing this rehab thing with you. I was on time. It's like every fucking day of my life with her as a child. Okay, moving on. Okay, breathing it out. See, this is emotional flashback. I'm working on just letting it feel itself out, but for the purposes of getting through this video, I don't have time for that. I don't have to do that in a moment. So, getting through the video. Rehab can be a tough time for people. I know that. But right now, I have literally emotionally cut myself off from worrying about if she's dead. I have an emotional reaction for if she is dead, and an emotional reaction for if she isn't. And I had both of those prepared on that day. I knew she wasn't when I made contact with her. So, here's the story from then on. Hey Mom, glad you're not dead. Dave and I finally set the date for the wedding. It's on June 30th. Remember, it's in Illinois, so I really wanted to call and talk about getting you plane tickets, because, you know, I know that the internet isn't your favorite thing, and I wanted to talk about how you wanted to get them bought. You know, did you want to come over here? Do you want me to go over there and help you through the process? And I really, when I said, hey, glad you're not dead, I was trying to open with a joke. I didn't say it aggressively. My mother and I have that kind of rapport. I honestly thought I was opening in the right fashion. I was not trying to piss her off. I just want to note that. I do try not to be aggressive with her because of the NPD, and I do know how to approach my mother without pissing her off. And that is what I was trying to do. Her response was, what wedding? Like, I am not joking. Stone-faced. I am positive on the other side of the phone. It's like, Mom, my wedding. You know, I was wondering if you were gonna go. She said, Jenny, don't get smart with me. I'm sick. It just got worse from there. It ended up with her saying, I gotta go. Fine. She got off the phone. After that, I had a complete mental breakdown. I got really close to calling the crisis line. I took some anxiety medication. I took a muscle relaxer because my neck was so stiff. I was getting a migraine. I could not open my eyes. I could not focus my eyes. My assault took place here in the optic center, and then up in here. So, and then I got punched on this side of my face, and I've taken a knee and a shin guard right in here, which caused that. So I've suffered a lot of damage to this side. So when my neck gets really tight, my head is just literally exploding, and some of the suicidal issues come from wanting to turn my head into hamburger, and when the pain is that immense, it gets really difficult to resist. That's a really difficult admission to make. Moving on. After that conversation, I have really begun to consider complete cut off with my mother, because that kind of mental manipulation, whether conscious or subconscious, on my mother's radar, whether she knows she's doing it or not, is just I don't know if you can put yourself in my shoes and ask yourself what you would do if you were the only child of your family and you had been engaged for over 2 years, and you called your parental unit, mother or father, I don't care if you are male or female, but you called your parental unit and you told them, hey, guess what? I set the date for the wedding, the long-awaited date that you knew was coming, and it's time to buy airline tickets. And their response was, what wedding? How devastated would you be? If you were in a fragile mental place and that was their response? They're your parent. They're your parents. Okay? You're not supposed to look out for them, I don't think. I mean, yes, to an extent, but I'm starting to get a headache. Okay. I gotta move on. I gotta get past this, or we're not gonna get through it. Okay. So this is the place I am at now. I have been, that conversation plus the Corey thing in November, plus between Corey and this conversation with my mother, I have been doing an insane amount of digging because Corey broke a lot of cracks. If you imagine like earthquakes, which is, I like geology, so it's an analogy I will use. Corey's death was an earthquake that put a lot of cracks in the foundation. And then my mother, that conversation was the big one that brought the building down. And now I've got nowhere to live. This is why I'm fixing things. And the reason I feel like this needs to be seen and heard now is because Robert McPunchy Hands, I can't remember his name, Kelly's right-hand man, the excuse is that it was only emotional and verbal abuse. That's not an excuse. Do you see me? My mother only mentally and verbally abused me. She only mentally and verbally abused me because I was bigger than her, because she couldn't physically abuse me. Do you think Kelly's right-hand dude would have physically abused other people if he could have? I mean, maybe someone just stopped him from punching them, so he turned to mental and verbal abuse because he couldn't physically abuse them. Or maybe he just didn't get caught for the physical abuse. Regardless, any abuse is abuse. So on to my next point. Why do I want to talk about it now? Because I'm tired of not getting my needs met. Because I want to fix myself. And because I want to help others get their needs met and fix themselves. But most of all, because I think we're all tired of people like Kelly and Conway projecting an uninformed message that says, if you're strong enough, if you somehow have a strong enough will, you won't get abused. That somehow you can get abused. That a victim of abuse is at fault that the time is now to clarify for all the Kellyanne Conways of the world, for all the victims that are confused and suffering and trapped, for anybody that might be hearing this for the first time. That it is not the fault of the victim for being weak in any sense. That if Hope Hicks is trapped right now in some way, it is not her fault. If someone has to go and rip her from the claws of that man, kicking and screaming, because he has her brainwashed into thinking she is in a good place, that it's still not her fault. That the abuser is the person who is at fault for abusing. They do not deserve protecting or enabling. The victim deserves help and understanding and compassion. That is what I have to say. I am a victim. I am not here for your tears. Not even here for your sympathy. I want you to hear me. I want you to respect my story. I want it to inform you. Hopefully it can embolden you if you're a victim. Please, I hope it can open a conversation. I'm willing to talk. Even to you, Kellyanne. And I do mean that. I hope you can hear the sincerity in those words. I am willing to talk. If I can change one person's mind, then telling this story will have done some good. Thank you for listening.